Hello, hello, hello. I can say this now because you're the first one with us tonight. But welcome, Jonathan. It's fabulous having you. As the people come in, I will let them in. So I have got the wonderful, fabulous Jennifer Jill Araya.
Hi. Well done saying my name.
Thank you. Thank you. That's
So good
the
to be
most
with you.
role I've ever gotten.
Right.
Um, I have to say a couple of things. Gina Rogers first introduced me to Jennifer's podcast and her wonderful supportive world for narrators. And if you haven't listened to her podcast, Starving Artist, singular, not plural, right? Starving Artist
Right.
No
Singular.
More.
Hmm.
And it is a lifesaver. And it's the answer to all the questions about the parts of my career that I make excuses for and just think, oh, I'm not good at that. And I was blown away when I first listened after Gina had raved about you. And then I have to be honest, I purposefully avoided listening a few times because sometimes you don't want to be reminded of the things you
Yeah,
should be doing.
absolutely.
But I went back because of Arturo. I
Oh,
love Art. I think your Arturo is like my Vlad that I talk about all the time. I love hearing about Arturo. He's quite a character on the podcast, so it always brings
oh
me back,
man.
even though I
Well,
don't to face my dire monetary consequences.
you're in for a treat because next week's episode, what's coming out this coming Tuesday, and for people who are watching this after the fact on YouTube, it will already be out. But the very next episode is an interview with Arturo.
I love
So yeah,
Arturo. He's like
I do
such a
too.
he's like the perfect character and like Eddie. It's like those repeat sitcoms that you don't know why you're watching this show, but there's that one character that you just love him so much you keep tuning in. That's Arturo.
Yeah, he's
And
pretty awesome.
I think actually that it might say something about you because to convey without saying the words your love for Arturo as an actress, that says a lot about you. That without even
Thank you.
putting it on, playing a character, or attempting to convey something, the underlying feeling shines out, and not only shines out, but makes us love him too. And that
Thank
that's
you.
that's
Thank
like the
you.
ultimate. That's what we're all working for, isn't it?
Sure.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
it's amazing. Okay, so
Yeah.
10-year-old. I just have this picture of you sitting around the table with your parents talking about money, and my parents were the opposite. And it's so weird to me. And I'm jealous.
Mm,
You know what I mean? I mean, I had larger
yeah.
than life amazing parents, but they were like 3-year-olds when it came to money. And I am very, very jealous of that. And I'd like to hear who you were at 10 years old, what your dreams and
Sure.
hopes were.
Sure. Sure. So I'll start by addressing the specific thing that you just mentioned, which was that my family made talking about money a very normal thing. Both of my parents are accountants. They own a small accounting firm that specializes in small business accounting. So they really focus in on what it means to be a solopreneur or a small LLC or a small S Corp or something like that. And talking about the work that they did every day together, because they own this company together, was very normal for our family conversation. So dinner table conversation really was, like what can be deductible and what's the difference between a contractor and an employee and when she should, you know, file a Schedule C versus filing a corporation return. Like all of those
Wow.
things were really just very normal. That said, just like everyone, I do have positive things about my money history and negative things about my money history. And honestly, in terms of dealing with finances as an adult, part of that process is figuring out what you were taught as a child about what money is and the role of money in the life of an adult and how you're going to handle that. So, I am very, very lucky for the money education that my parents gave me. But even still, there were some holes that I've figured out and filled in since then. But in terms of other things around my life at 10 years old, so I heard that you ask this most of your guests. So this is actually a question I've been thinking of a lot and just kind of missing on 10-year-old me. So at 10 years old, I had just started playing flute. I started voice lessons, I think, when I was about 4, piano lessons a year later. And so I'd been doing music and music performances for a long time. And I had started doing theater when I was about 7.
But wait. We're speeding ahead. Why did you start the flute? Did you see a TV show? Someone was playing the flute?
So I started the flute at 10 because that was when band started in my school program. And I started with the school band program. But I wanted to start playing flute when I was about 5 and went to a performance of the President's Own Marine Band when they toured through West Virginia, where I grew up. Oh. And I saw the piccolo players stand up for the Stars and Stripes Forever and play that line and was just captivated, overwhelmingly captivated by the piccolo. And immediately afterwards, because I was already taking voice lessons, already taking ballet, already taking piano, and I told my mom, okay, that's what I want to do now. I'm now playing the piccolo. And my mom said, well, first you have to wait until you're a little bit older because you'll start in school. And you have to play the flute first because you don't start on the piccolo. And she tells me, I don't remember this, but she tells me that 5-year-old me cried for about a week because I couldn't play the piccolo first. I had to start with the flute. So,
but can I stop you here? Because 5-year-old you, I think we don't pay attention to those moments. And going even further back than 10, I think those moments when we're first seeing the world and we're making decisions about who we are and what we love, I think those become part of like who we really are, like our whole entire lives. Like the world tells us they're not. But I think do you not think that moment was like a making moment?
For
moment
sure.
Yeah,
for sure. No question. And in fact, one even earlier than that, when I was about 4, I told my mom that I wanted to sing I wanted to sing. And she said, well, Jennifer, you already sing, because I was in the church, the little, tiny little kids choir at church. And she's like, you sing there. And I told her, no, I want to sing solo. But that belief that I wanted to be my own artist has always been there. It has never wavered, that I wanted to be not necessarily an artist by myself, because I love the collaborative process, but definitely an artist of my own making, using my own creativity and not just copying what someone else has done. So 10-year-old me was learning to play the flute and loving every second of it, even though I quit the flute in favor of cello a couple of years later. But loving every second of learning to play the flute. I was taking dance classes, I was taking piano, I was taking ballet, I was taking voice lessons, I was doing children's theater. And
where did this come from? Was anyone in your family creative? I mean, like that, music.
My grandfather, so not necessarily in music, although my grandfather had a beautiful voice and played guitar, and my grandmother on the other side had a gorgeous voice as well. And my mom is an excellent amateur pianist. She never did it professionally, but she accompanied me on all of my competitions through my entire growing up years. So she's very good. But I was the only one who was like completely consumed by it in the way that I was. My grandfather was a fabulous artist. He did pastels and oil paintings. And in fact, we've got his paintings all over my house.
Oh, wow.
So art is definitely something that's always been there, but I don't know, the obsession that I had to perform, I needed to share this desire, this performance creativity, I guess kind of starts with me.
Did you ever get off track? Did you ever have a dark night of the soul where you doubted that you could keep doing it, or get off track, or get scared, or get pushed around by the world? Tell us about that.
Oh,
as
sure.
Much as you're comfortable.
Yeah, sure. Plenty of times. So my actual degrees in school, I went to conservatory, are cello performance, and I studied voice also. So studied both at conservatory. And then for my master's degree, I decided I wanted to sort of focus in on cello with the goal of becoming an orchestral cellist, get a full-time orchestral cello job somewhere, which, by the way, statistically, it's harder to get a full-time job in an American orchestra than it is to play for a Major League Baseball team. So
really? Why do you think that is?
because just statistically, there's a higher number of people trying to get into the orchestras than there are people trying to get on the Major League Baseball.
Were your parents worried about that?
Yes and no. I think partly because they taught me what it meant to be a small business owner. They were never particularly worried about how's she going to make a living, because a lot of my parents' clients were craftsmen and artists of some sort. And they saw and taught me vicariously what it meant to be an artist business owner. So I knew how to freelance and to find the jobs and to do teaching. My parents actually helped me start up. So I grew up in a very small town in West Virginia. There were not very many music teachers right in my town. For my music lessons, I had to travel a little bit more than an hour away to the West Virginia University. And so right in my town, for like kids who were just starting stringed instruments or just starting piano or just voice or whatever, there weren't very many music teachers. And so starting at age 15, my parents helped me start up music teaching. So I've been self-employed since I was 15 years old, teaching music lessons after school. Yeah. So I think on that sense, they never really worried that I wasn't going to be able to support myself. But the concept of, am I going to get that job in a full-time orchestra? That's a little bit, harder to contemplate, a lot harder to get. And so I graduated with my master's in cello performance, focusing on orchestral cello playing. And I took every single orchestral cello audition in the United States or Canada for the next 5 years. And every single time it was me flying with my cello strapped in the seat next to me, because you can't check the cello. Too costly for that. So I buy a second seat for my cello. And actually Arturo was taking all these auditions with me. We met. So
how many would you say that was? Like a year?
A year, probably somewhere between 10 to 14. I mean, every couple of weeks we were flying to a different city. And it was the sort of thing that if we had gotten the job, we would have been moving in the next 2 weeks. So it's a very destabilizing way to live.
Yeah.
You never know. I mean, if the luck goes my way, then I'm going to get to finals and I'm going to get the job, and then I start in 2 weeks. And so I have to move and completely pack up my life.
And I don't want to move you off, because the career trajectory is really important, but also really important. How did you meet Arturo?
So I can tell you in a lot of detail, because we met the first day. It was January 5th of 2005. We studied with the same teacher, and Arturo had been in China and had come back. So he was starting the school year in January. So he hadn't done the fall quarter. And he had, on the first Tuesday of my freshman year, winter quarter, he had the lesson right before mine. And so our teacher, as Arturo's lesson was ending and my lesson was starting, our teacher introduced us. But at that time, I was a tiny little 18-year-old and Arturo was 28. He's 10 years older than I am. He was working on the equivalent of a doctorate in music. It's called an artist diploma. It's a doctorate in performance, basically. And I was a freshman, and we were both dating people long distance. And so we just became really good friends. Arturo and I did a lot of the organizing for our teacher's studio class together, because our teacher had his students handle his studio class rather than him organizing. So Arturo and I, with one of our other friends, worked on the studio class together, and that's how we got to be good friends. And then fast forward a couple of years, and we both broke up with the people we were dating long distance and started dating each other. So
I think friendship is very, very romantic.
Yeah. Agreed.
You know what I mean? Despite what some of the books will tell you, friendship is underrated. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Arturo is absolutely my best friend, and I'm so lucky to have him in my life.
I mean, love at first sight is great as well, but then
right.
You better hope you become friends.
Yes, for sure. For sure. You have to actually like the person beyond what they look like on the outside,
Okay, so now, considering I probably have an audience thinking about career stuff, let's get back to your career project.
Yeah.
I'm being self-indulgent at the moment.
No, not at all. Not at all.
But
so for those 5 years, we were taking all these cello auditions. And by the end of that 5 years, I no longer enjoyed playing cello. I had completely lost the love
Oh, that's so
of cello
sad.
performance. Yeah, it is. Now I have found it again. No fears. I have absolutely found it again. But that process, I guess, taught me that there was a way in which I didn't want to use my creativity and my performance desire, and that I needed to find a way that worked better for my unique creativity and my unique performer's drive. I
Right.
needed to find something else. And so I did. I worked in a lot of different things. And while we were taking those auditions, I had all sorts of other, creative jobs at the same time. I was still teaching music. I was doing a lot of gigging, doing a lot of orchestral playing for the smaller orchestras that are part-time. I, for a while, had a job working as a seamstress. I did some art fairs and craft shows with clay sculpting that I sort of had always done on the side. I mean, nothing amazing, but I sold decently well and I had fun with it. But all the way through, I was kind of searching for like, what is the unique way that I want to share my creativity? Because
Yeah.
sharing that creativity has always been a really big driving purpose for me. How do I want to share my creativity? And when I stumbled on audiobooks in 2018, I instantly knew, like the instant I saw ACX and realized that I could be an audiobook narrator,
Yeah.
it was just, okay, this is it. This is it. I'm going to put everything in this one basket. They always say, don't put all your eggs in one basket. I definitely did.
I'm a
And
one
I
basket
dove in,
girl.
yeah, I
Yeah.
dove in feet first, and I was convinced and determined that I was going to make this work. And thankfully, with lots of hard work, I've had an incredible career at this.
So you
I
started this
really feel like I found my
podcast.
place.
What made you think
Yes,
about the podcast? What made you?
sure. So, well, first off, I actually have two podcasts. Starving Artists No More is just one of them. The other one is Crafting Audiobooks, which I co-host with another audiobook narrator,
Oh,
Sarah Beth
yes.
Thor.
Yes.
And
And I saw
that
that
one,
one. It looks
yeah,
amazing as well. I've got to be honest, I've got like a particular Starving Artist No More is something about the mindset approach
mm,
and the specific things it addresses is
sure.
what speaks to my heart. But yes, I
I'm
highly
glad.
recommend your other podcast as well.
Yeah, thank you. But yeah, so Crafting Audiobooks I did that one because Sarah came to me with the idea and I thought it was great. And I'm like, yes, let me be part of it. So that's Crafting Audiobooks. But with Starving Artists No More, that started with actually Gail Shallon and Marnie Penning. And I talk about them a fair amount on the podcast. So you probably have heard me
Yeah.
talk about them. They are my two business accountability partners. We meet every other week to talk business, and then we do body doubling on the opposite weeks when we've got stuff that we need to get done. So we work together on those things. But I had been sharing a lot about my understanding of the business side of things with Gail and Marnie. And as we were going through that process and helping each other and holding each other accountable to the things that we needed to get done, Gail and Marnie both kind of gave me the little push that I needed to make business coaching a formal thing that I do.
Which came
I had been
first, the podcast or the coaching?
the coaching, and I've
Coaching.
been doing coaching sort of informally for years and years and years. I mean, I remember even in conservatory, helping some of my friends figure out how to start music studios, where to get students, and how to market as a private music teacher, and those sorts of things. So I've been doing that kind of coaching
Yeah.
for a really long time, but making it a formal part of my business plan and what I do when I tell people, I do these things, was something that came from Gail and Marnie, and I frankly trust them enough that I listened.
Okay,
So the
I have
podcast
a
is an
question.
outgrowth of that. Yeah.
I'm completely interrupting you. I've just so many things are striking me. Sorry about that. It's when I get excited about a conversation. So
Yeah, please.
the nature of your business is people that want help in a lot of your focus is people that want help in managing money and that have blocks and fears around money. So what I don't
Correct.
understand, and I know this as one of those people, is when you're that person, you already feel guilty about every expense. How do you get that person to sign up to pay for the coaching for them? Do you know what I mean? They've already got so many
Sure.
fears and stress
Sure.
around money. Is it something you have to convince people to do? Is it a hard I mean, people know when they need something. I mean, I do some things right. I have a budget for coaching
Hmm.
every year at the beginning of the year. Because I believe no matter who you are, or what you do, you need a coach at the beginning of every year
Absolutely.
for the next step to reach your
Hmm.
goals. But
Agreed.
how do you, for people, because you were doing another thing about goals, and which reminded me guiltily that my goals last year were to start facing the whole award review thing and actually putting myself forward. And since 2023 is just starting, I should probably look at that. My answer to life is, and I'm sure you've run into this, and I'd be interested in hearing. I'm not asking for free coaching on this call, I swear to you,
No, no.
but I would be interested in hearing your approach to coaching, the different scenarios you come up with recalcitrant clients. My approach to working to money has, see, my parents, we lived in a very wealthy neighborhood. All the kids in my school had Jaguars. I mean, I remember I had to take the bus. So I would like skip the bus and walk through all the rich houses and go, how the hell am I going to get this? What exactly am I supposed to do? And I also started working. I was volunteering when I was 13. I've worked every day of my life without exception,
Hmm.
pretty much. But I ignore bills. And since becoming a freelancer, I discovered the whole credit card thing just out of like sheer desperation. And I ignore that whole thing and just think I'll work harder. I've now run out of hours in the day. I
Yeah.
evidently we only get 24. And the alternative is doing what you suggest. I got the book. I read about the couple that bought the house and I didn't get any further. I thought if as soon as I get a break, I'll do it. And just the panic and then the bad decisions that come after the panic. My parents pushed us to go to the best schools and get the best grades, and we excelled. And then it came time to go to college, and they were like, "Yep, just go." Like there was no like budget or do you know what I mean? It
Sure.
was like just go out in
Yeah.
the world and make a living. So there were some days in LA when I first moved there. I was not going to ask my parents for money. And I would like stay on the 24-hour bus at night because I had nowhere to live, a few days like that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that as a homeless person because I had a nice family in the suburbs I could go to, but it's it can be a life-changing thing if you can get control. And my husband was the first person that ever taught me if you take a little of your paycheck. So from the day I met him when I was like 25, I took 10% of my income. And that's how I bought our flat because I
Hmm.
literally lived in LA without a car and took 10% of my income no matter what.
Right.
But
Sure. Sure.
I've stopped that now and I just buy inappropriate things. So, how do you communicate? Because you're not that kind of person. How do you
Hmm.
find the empathy and the ability to communicate? And do you think people really change? Have you seen people really change?
I have seen people really change. So I'll start with the last part of that question. It is absolutely possible to make really big positive changes in your life, but it all comes down to deciding to start and deciding that this is
Read
something
past
that matters
chapter
to you.
one.
Well, I mean, even more than that, just making sure that you do get through chapter one and actually absorb it and take it in. I am a very, very big believer in the power of small steps as a motivating factor. When you're able to see that little tiny change that you made actually making a difference to the outcome that you're experiencing, that can do incredible, incredible things to your motivation to take the next small step. Um, I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and it was a business podcast, but the person who was being interviewed is a mountain climber, and he said that his mountain climbing mentor was climbing with him and kind of giving him some tips and so forth. And they walked along for a little while, and then all of a sudden, the mentor kind of looked down and looked at his feet, and he said, "You know, If you take small steps, you'll actually get there faster. Because when you're climbing a mountain, you take big steps and you're using every single muscle in your body and you're pulling the pack that you've got with you, and taking big steps when you're climbing a mountain actually tires you out faster. If you are willing to take tiny little steps, one small incremental improvement or change at a time, you will actually get the mountain climbed faster than if you're worried about taking these giant leaps all the time. So don't worry about getting your budget quote unquote perfect. Worry about putting one category in your budget and sticking to one category. And then in a couple months, once that one category feels easeful to you, then add another category and another. I mean, break the steps down as small as you need to feel like it's really an approachable thing that you are able to handle. So in terms of how I relate to people who have a background very different than mine, I mean, we've already talked about how lucky I was in terms of the upbringing that I received. My parents are incredible people. I relate to them the same way that I relate to anyone in my life who's dealing with a challenge, and the way that I hope people relate to me when I'm dealing with a challenge. Because I have challenges too, they just are different ones. With empathy, recognizing that this person is doing the best they can with the information they have and the skills and abilities that they have right now. And if they are going to be able to do better, then they need to get more information and get more skills and cultivate those abilities to behave differently. But in order to behave differently, you have to start with opening up that mindset, getting that better information.
Yeah.
But you're doing the best that you can right now. And I mean, that's sort of what I would say to you necessarily. I mean, you just looking at you, it's like I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No idea how much faux fur has come through this.
But I mean,
anyone who's been on Facebook has seen how well I'm doing. But the thing is, even people starting, I can only imagine people starting in this career. I mean, that rings so true to me, what you've said, because the small steps thing, because when my husband was like, okay, what's 10% of your check? Because at the time I was like, how do I afford the rent? We're in LA and it's hard in LA. And
yeah,
he was like, he had me literally a safe deposit box, not an account. So I had to walk to it once a week when I got my check and put the money in the box. But the thing is, it was kind of a fun game at first. And I remember the first time we'd saved $2,000. I couldn't but then once we'd done that, I didn't want to touch it. I didn't want to spend it on anything. We'd done it so we could travel back here, but I didn't want to spend it. And that grew our whole life. We didn't want to touch that money. And we used it to literally put a deposit on a house.
On your flat. Yeah.
Do you know
Which
what
is
I mean?
Amazing.
And now it's all gone to hell.
Well, I think part of that, the going to hell, is that you don't have a clear purpose for it anymore.
It's the audio world. You don't know. You can't, when you're working corporate jobs and you've always got a job, you always know when the money's coming. So when and I know that I kind of remember that first podcast I listened to that you actually addressed that issue in detail. So I'm embarrassed to say that my brain completely listened and said, yes, someday when I'm a grown-up, I'll pay attention to this.
No, I completely understand. Until something forces you to sit down and deal with it, there are things in our lives that we aren't going to sit down and deal with it because it feels easier in the moment to ignore it. And addressing your question of, if someone's having financial struggles, how do they have enough money to pay for coaching? Well, honestly, that's part of the reason I have the podcast.
Was that
no,
a rude question?
Not at all. Not at all. But that is part of the reason that I have the free podcast, because even if someone is really, truly in a situation that they aren't able to afford to work with me in my group workshops or one-on-one or any of my other programs, at least they have access to this information. At least there is a way for them to get it. And I give lots of book recommendations, especially when I talk about finances, because I am not
the
financial.
I bought those books in 2 seconds. I was online. They were arriving there. But you know what's smart though? That you just, because what you just said there about how it feels scary in the moment. I can't remember how you said it. It feels scary in the
Mhm.
moment. And I
It
had one
feels
day
easier in the moment to just ignore it.
to just
Yeah.
ignore it. And I had one day where I dealt with, and every year when I do the taxes, even though I've said that I would be doing them throughout the year, I had one day where I dealt with all the like pension, this
Hmm.
upcoming thing. How the hell am I going to pay this off in the house? And at the end of the day, I felt the way I'd felt when I was saving money and
Yeah.
knew it. I felt like there was a cushion around me and I was going to be okay, and to rather than the normal feeling of I'm going to be under a bridge and maybe they'll put me in a nice home, but probably not.
Yeah. For sure, for sure. So my entire philosophy about what it means to be an artist business owner is that you are receiving support from your business in three ways. You get creative support, so you get to do work that you really enjoy. You get personal support, so that you've got time for the relationships that matter to you and to do the things
Mm,
that you love to do outside your business. And that includes your relationship with yourself. And then the third part being financial support. And I think of those three things like a three-legged stool. If we are stressed about finances all the time, then creatively, when we're doing our artistic work, we're not able to, because part of our brain is going, oh shit, oh my gosh, I've got these bills to pay, and the money for this project is not going to come in soon enough, and I am in deep water, and I'm in credit card debt or whatever. Like that's going on in your brain and keeping you from being your best creative self. So
yeah,
when you spend time addressing the financial part of your business, that is actually helping you be a better creative. So the way that I do it, so I'm really big on setting up systems and processes, and a lot of my work with my students is actually helping them figure out what systems and processes work for them. For me, what works is on the 1st and the 15th of every month, I set aside a couple hours and I work on my finances. It's just a couple hours, but because I break it up like that and I do it so regularly, it only takes like an hour to an hour and a half on that 1st and on the 15th of every month. And then it's done. And I can create knowing that the money is where it needs to be, the bills have been paid, and I have the budget and it's set, and I
right. I'm going to
don't
do
have
that.
that stress.
I'm going to
Yeah,
do that. 1st and 15th of every
good.
month. I'm going to do that because this time of year, everyone's got their hands in your pockets.
Mm-hmm.
Like every
Agreed.
company wants their annual fee, and it's, everyone's right when you feel like you should be spending, for joy and others. And
Right.
I mean, it is a pretty good feel-good factor to deck yourself in tons of faux fur while you're creating, but
Yes, this is
it's
true. This
not
is true. It is helpful
sustainable.
to the creative process. But
Now we've
maybe
got,
just use the same faux fur over and over,
yeah,
or sell it so that you're
at,
getting money back.
at this point, I could pretty much cover an army with faux fur. Now, Jonathan has a very important question.
Yes.
What are the medals hanging on the back wall of your booth for?
Oh, so those are my Audie finalist medals. So I've been an
Oh, is
Audie
that what they
finalist.
look like?
That's what they look like. They're pinned up there, so I'm not going to be able to get them down very easily. But yeah, those are the Audie finalist medals. So the one that's yellow right in the middle there is from 2022, and then the two blue ones are from 2023. I only won two of the three Audies for the medal, but these are the finalist medals. So
That's
that's
very
what they
cool.
are.
So I only won two. But
Well,
so
I
what's
didn't
your
win all three.
relationship? What's your relationship with awards? What part do they play in your career?
Sure. Um, quite honestly, in terms of my creative fulfillment from the work that I do, the three-legged stool I was just talking about, relatively low, actually. I enjoy the accolades for sure, and I am super proud of the work that went into the books, all three of them. And actually, of the three, the one that didn't win the Audie is the one I am most proud of, because that was the solo narration, and that was the book that I submitted for an Audie, that got the nomination nod, even though it
Yeah.
didn't win.
But
So,
it's
so
still
I mean,
nominated, and
oh,
that's great.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. No, I mean, like I said, that's the one I'm most proud of. But truthfully, to me, awards are more about social proof. and showing the casting directors to which I'm marketing myself and the authors to whom I want or with whom I want to work that, see, I'm an award-winning narrator. I can truly do a world-class job with your audiobook. To me, awards are very much more about the social proof part of things. Again, I'm super thankful and gracious and, just incredibly amazed that I won them and thankful for that and all of the awards, not just the Audies. And
but there's a business aspect to it.
Right. There's very much a business aspect. And for me, the creative satisfaction comes from knowing that readers are connecting with the books. So truthfully, what I enjoy more is when I go to a book con and someone comes up to me and is like, oh my gosh, you narrated book whatever. Yeah. I loved listening to it. It was, that connection to me matters a whole lot more than the medals, as much as I'm super proud of the medals.
Yeah, I had an experience with a review. Like, do you read your reviews?
My Audible reviews, no. I do read the audio file reviews.
I had a recent experience where I don't read my reviews, and I was dreading it. Mm-hmm. But it was a multicast, and my character was not the most likable person. And so I had this idea of hundreds of people going, oh my God, I loved all of them except that one person ruined the book. So I snuck a peek. But what I noticed, and it was like a career highlight to me, like the biggest deal on earth. I was like a little over the moon about it. All these people were going, because the writers are really good writers. So all these people were like, oh, these people, they're all like not the most likable characters. It's like these are most horrible people. But strangely, you have to listen to, but almost all the reviewers talked about the characters, not the narrators, as if they knew them. One guy went, hashtag I stand for Brooke, because you know what I mean? And I was like, oh, they believed it. They loved it. They might have hated the characters. Yeah.
But they bought you as the characters, for sure. So for the Crafting Audiobooks podcast about a week ago, Sarah and I interviewed Robin Whitten, who's the editor of AudioFile magazine.
I love Robin.
Me too. Her episode's not out yet. It won't be out for a little while yet. But in that episode, in that interview, she talked about how for her, the height of artistry from a narrator is when the narrator as an entity completely fades in the background.
Yes, that was it.
Only understand them as the characters. And
best moment of my life.
Congratulations to you. You did that. That's amazing.
On all four of us, amazing cast. They're all amazing. But the fact that all four of us, nobody noticed us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, on your ego part, you're like, I want people to notice me. But at the same time, if I'm doing my job well, people won't notice me.
Yeah, no, I don't want them to notice me. Yeah, I don't want them. I definitely don't want them to notice me. But when my friends send me an email going, oh, you've got an audio file, I'm like, don't tell me these things, which is why I have such a thing with, but I do have one book. And ironically, it's funny that you say that about the books. And it's good thought to think of the awards as business, because I have a solo book that I'm starting and the sample's due tomorrow. And I meant to do it 5 days early. And it's my favorite kind of book on earth, psychological thriller. And I thought, if I do submit to awards, this is the kind of book that I, do a good job on and start thinking business and taking those steps and just don't think about it and do it. Somehow I've managed to avoid doing the sample for 5 days.
So I think sometimes when a project becomes so precious to us, we don't want to approach it because we're afraid that we're not going to do it justice, like that little imposter syndrome in the back of your head. But I will tell you the same thing that I tell myself when this happens to me, because it does happen to me. And what I will tell you is that imposter monster is wrong, that you were hired for this book because you bring something unique. The casting director or the author, or whoever chose you for this book, would not have chosen you for the book if they didn't know that you could do a good job. And if they didn't know that you could be trusted with it. So if you can't rely on your own trust, rely on theirs.
Yeah, and
they're really good at their job. They cast you well.
Do you feel like that all the time? Because what I've found is I've told people this for like the last 3 years, right? I finally fought the imposter syndrome. Sometimes I'm a guru. I mean, literally, I can solve your life's problems in 5 minutes. But then give me one bad week, or I find if you get tired or something happens in the house. Do you not find that no matter how strong your mindset, it still goes sailing down a cliff?
Yeah. So for me, that's where I go back to the personal side of the three-legged stool, that I need to be taking care of myself creatively, personally, and financially. And I actually have a chronic pain condition that impacts my life pretty significantly. And if I'm not taking care of my personal self and making sure that I'm eating regularly and the right kinds of food, and making sure that I'm working out regularly and making sure that I'm getting enough sleep, then like things totally fall off a cliff, because I then get into the pain spiral. And so when you're in that place that, stuff is going wrong, take a step back and focus on what you need to be your best self. Because only by being your best self can you give the work the best of yourself. If you don't have it, you can't give it.
You reminded me.
It starts with
I'm doing it again. I swear I don't interrupt guests this much, but you're so brilliant. Okay. You did a podcast and I listened to it on a day that I had multiple fractures and was narrating a book on one leg because I narrate standing up. And I wasn't taking painkillers because I didn't want to be taken out of the house on a stretcher to go to the emergency room. So I just did it. Turned out it was fractures. But the important point of this, I mean, really, honestly, everyone's heard the story. It's gone and over. But the important point is, I listened to your podcast on that day and you were talking about the pain, and I'd had chronic health from like ages. And you said something to the extent of, it's your pain, so it's valid. It's you're going through what you're going through. And I'd never ever considered that or given myself permission. So I just kept going through all those years, no matter. And I think weirdly, when you try, like you say, a chronic health condition, I think weirdly, when you approach it with fighting it, you're fighting your own body and you intensify it.
Yeah.
And you need permission, don't you?
Absolutely. And my coming to grips with, I mean, truthfully, I'm not disabled in the way that a lot of people are, but I am disabled by the chronic pain condition that I have, and coming to grips with what that means for me and allowing myself to thrive beyond that. It's actually something that's relatively recent, within the last 3 years. It kind of came to a head over the pandemic, actually. A lot of things for a lot of people came to a head over the pandemic. But just accepting that this is my reality, but it doesn't need to be my focus. And I can say, okay, today is a really bad pain day. Let's do all of the things that I can do that are within my control to deal with that. And then I'm going to move on and do what I need to do. And if that's lie in bed and not record all day because it's a really bad day, then that's okay. Because that's what my body will allow me to do. And I will be able to make it up tomorrow. And if that is be in the booth with, my essential oils that I have on, and the homeopathic, there's several pressure points that I can trigger that help a lot. And so I've got, there are actually clips that they sell that will fit here and here on your hand. Do I have them? Yep, I have them right here next to me. They're clips that I put on, and when help. That pressure, they help. They lessen the intensity. So I'm fine. I'm feeling fine today. But I'll just record with the clips on and with my heating pad on my shoulders, and do all of the things that will help lessen the pain so that it's no longer my focus. And once I get to the point that it's okay, I can focus on the book now. I can focus on these characters. I can focus on doing my creative work. Okay, then I move forward. But I've already acknowledged the reality that this is something I live with, and I'm going to do everything in my control to manage it productively.
And do you, but what about boundaries with people? Because I heard a lot of, mine was, I had extreme migraines and then I had LPR. So I would wake up sounding like a truck driver, but I've got that, I've learned how to fix the LPR and the headaches. If I go, I've got the other kind of migraine where if I get boiling hot water down my neck on time, I can stop it. But if I'm in the middle of something, I have to keep going. But in all that, I spent a lot of time listening to podcasts with people with chronic pain. And one thing I heard a lot, I didn't experience, but I heard is that if you live with chronic pain and you need to not do something, or you can't show up at it, you can't always show up and be on at a certain time, that people are like, but you look fine. You seem fine because you look like you do a lot and you're well functioning. Did you experience that? Because you look like an overachiever. You seem like you do like an amazing amount of stuff. Do you ever have problems with people not understanding when you need to draw boundaries for your health?
So yes and no. I would say that until, again, really the pandemic, when I kind of grappled with it internally, I didn't have a problem with that because I didn't draw boundaries for myself. I can't tell you how many concerts I played with a raging migraine and had no memory of the concert once it was done because the pain was so bad.
Yeah.
And I had no business being on stage in that situation. I was not contributing. I was not serving the music by doing what I did, but people expected me to be there and I wasn't drawing boundaries. And so I did it. Again, this is a lot thanks to Gail and Marnie, being like, no, Jennifer, what you're experiencing is real. They've really helped me come to terms. And then also Arturo's advice and encouragement have helped me come to terms with the fact that my body,
Arturo.
we do love Arturo. But if my body is saying, if my body is saying that I need to take a break, then I need to take a break.
Yeah.
Then, I mean, it doesn't matter whether someone honors that boundary or not. It is the boundary, and I'm not going to be swayed from that.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I've necessarily had problems with it because before I wasn't putting any boundaries in place, so no one even knew about it. I mean,
So the judgment was coming from internally.
The judgment was 100% internal. And over the pandemic, I didn't have any concerts that I was missing because it was pandemic, everything was canceled. And at this point, I've gotten to a place where I'm open enough about the fact that I do have this very life-altering condition that when I need to make adjustments or put boundaries in place, people seem to be pretty understanding. Now,
You've become a strong boss. You've become a strong boss of your own body. The publisher would have given me extra time.
Yeah.
You see, you do it to yourself, don't you? Because if I'd said, I'm standing on one leg in agony, the publisher would have given me extra time. But I was determined. You've become a kind boss to yourself.
And that's something that I think about a lot, that I really do want. I mean, I am both the boss and the employee as an artist business owner, and I really do want to be kind to myself.
Yeah.
I really do want to treat myself the way that I would like a boss to treat me.
I'm a mean boss.
I think all artist business owners are at some point, and that honestly, I think comes from that starving artist mentality that jobs are scarce and I'm not going to survive if I don't hustle, and there's not enough out there, so everything that comes my way I have to take. There's no filtering of what projects are actually right for me and which ones are going to allow me to shine. I just have to take everything. That kind of mentality creates a bad employee boss relationship internally.
Yeah.
But if you allow yourself to accept that not every project is right for me, even the ones that are offered for me, not everyone is right for me. And I'm going to only accept the things that allow me to be my creative best. I'm going to only do the kind of work that truly has me passionate and excited and joyful, because that's going to show me at my best and get me more work of that kind. if I allow myself that sense of openness, not grabbing the jobs with closed fist,
And
but holding
trust.
them gently and trust,
Yeah.
then that allows you to have more internal harmony, which again, I mean, kind of like that, I keep coming back to the three-legged stool idea.
Yeah.
When you are creatively fulfilled, then you're getting paid better because you're doing better work for the most part. And you're getting joy from that work. So personally, you're more excited about it. I mean, it's a very positive feedback loop, or can be a very negative feedback loop, depending on what you're feeling.
Two thoughts enter my mind. First, our guest here, Jonathan, I will edit this part if you let me know after the call if you don't want me to say it. But I think he's a great example of exactly what you're talking about, because he's got music on the side, if I'm not remembering incorrectly. He's got his music on the side. He's got his like family and stuff. He's got the balance, and he's had extraordinary success. Coming one after another. Well, no, it's extraordinary, well-deserved, extraordinary success, because I think he's got his head in the right place. And that brings me to a question I've got for you.
Yeah.
What's your relationship? Because I noticed, I didn't even see the post myself. I don't read a lot of these posts on social media. And I'm curious about your relationship and reaction to social media at times, because we are involved because they're our friends and we are interested and we want to know what's happening around the corner. But then a friend told me on the phone, oh, you might want to avoid this post. Somebody else posted about how they're like afraid of not having work in the new year, and they're not going to let the same thing happen to them last year. So they're going to start reaching out. And then a whole bunch of other people posted about how they have nothing. And we had so many Joe old school calls where people talked about dry spells, and it is something you want your friends to, but I find those posts about dry spells end up with a whole bunch of people piling on about how they have a dry spell. And I'm booked. Like, my problem is not how am I going to get jobs? My problem is, oh my God, how the hell am I going to record 5 finished hours tomorrow and actually like have breakfast, right?
Yes,
but
yes.
Still, I've been walking around for a few days going, oh my God, maybe I should be reaching out to more people right now, because what if the work's not dried up? It's like not a thing. But so what is your opinion about that? It's an illusion. I think
it is an illusion. So I actually was coaching a student about this last week. We had a very long discussion about those exact kind of posts. So I'm going to sort of tell you a little bit of what I told that student in that coaching call. I started in 2018 as a narrator, which is not all that long ago, but it is 5 years. I mean, I'm started in January of 2018. So this coming January, it'll be 6 years. In all of that time, every couple of months, those posts have popped up. So it's kind of like everyone feels like this is something that's brand new and AI is causing it. And no,
it's not. I'm sorry.
In the group history, this is not new.
And I'm not going to mention the 8 zillion new people that entered the industry. And no, we're not, because they're all on this post and you don't want to call them out. So you're blaming the robots.
Yeah. I mean, and so the industry has changed in some very appreciable ways. I don't want to deny that. However, dry spells, ups and downs, and the level of work that you get are part of what it means to be an artist business owner.
Yeah.
Full stop. There are things that you can do to reduce that, but you will never get rid of it completely. That's something that's fully beyond your control. I'm really big on focusing on what you can control.
Right.
So just know that those ups and downs and the amount of work that you're getting will come. And the idea is that you have systems and processes in place so that you're handling it in a positive way when the dry spells happen.
Yeah, and ways that you can get your own work. Like
Exactly. So the other thing that I told my student, which I would very much say to you too, Daniela, is that the people who are booked up, like you and like me, my schedule right now is a lot more full than I would really like, but it's all stuff that I'm so excited about doing.
I like that.
But we're not commenting on those posts.
We don't have time.
Because that would we don't have time. But even if we do have the time, commenting on that post and being like, I'm all booked up, I don't know what y'all's problem is. It's really rude. Like, you can't do that. So you're not going to do that. And so the only side of the story that you're seeing is the people who happen to be in a dry spell right now.
But there's no
You're seeing half,
solutions. There's no solutions. Those posts always just
yeah.
they devolve into like.
So I will say one of those posts in the last month, I saw Mandy Stribling posted some very, very straightforward and simple, easy to follow solutions
Oh,
because Mandy is
yes.
just amazing.
Yes. Yes.
And she did it, in her kind way because Mandy's just incredible like that. And she was kind of shot down a little bit for it. And it was just like, no, there are ways to get yourself out of those slow spells.
Oh, I
So
missed that one because she did post on an earlier post, but I don't think she was shot down.
yeah, I mean,
Nobody had better shoot down
maybe I was
Mandy.
reading, I know, maybe I was reading tone in the comments that wasn't there,
No,
but
you're probably not, because what it
yeah,
is, and somebody asked me, I felt kind of bad because somebody asked me about AI. And the thing about AI is, this is the problem. Okay, we have all well-founded things, we have all well-founded ways, but the thing about AI, and I'm guilty, that some guy sent an stupid email out.
oh sure, the
Yeah,
ACX thing that went
and
out.
I posted it and went, jerk. I was in a bad mood and felt like it. It was very rarely post those things. But I said to this writer, because he was going on a thing, and he said, tell me about, from a narrator's perspective, AI. I said, I'm the wrong person to ask, because a couple of things. It's dealing with a million people's fears, greatest fear and insecurity, and afraid of not having work, depending on who you are and where you are in your career. And it's existential at this point, and it's blind, and you better not say the wrong thing. You're what? And then also, I haven't put this together because it's a different thing. I tell myself, well, a lot of narrators have been on Discord, and that's like, virtual. But I am obsessed with virtual reality meditation. It has changed my life. It has changed my
Interesting.
life. I joined a program with anxiety and depression. Not that, I mean, I don't know. I felt a bit bad. Like, I don't really have bad enough anxiety, but I really want to try the virtual reality headset. But turns out I might have had it because, like, it's changed who I am as a human being. But that's virtual reality is AI. I don't hate. Oh, I don't think the robots are coming to get us. I've got mixed feelings about it. I don't like money grabbers that are like ruining the industry.
Yes.
But I also think people are so easily pulled into this vortex. There's this like a philosophy written by this Russian guy called transurfing, and he talks about pyramids. Pyramids? I might be getting the word wrong because exhaustion, but but they start, and you can get sucked into it. There's another word, and I'm missing the word.
Vortex?
Maybe? It's like something like that. I think it's the idea is a vortex, and you can get sucked into it. And it could be a company, a business. When you work at a company and everyone's gossiping, and it becomes like a thing, they do more and more and more, and it grows on itself. That's how I feel about a lot of the social media. People go there when they've got bad feelings and they're not managing their bad feelings, and they put it out there in the hope of getting relief, and everyone else piles their bad feelings on top of those bad feelings, and you all end up feeling bad at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, sorrow multiplied can be sorrow relieved, but I think on social media it tends to be sorrow. Sorry, I'm saying this totally wrong. Sorrow shared can be sorrow relieved if you've got the right people that you're sharing that sorrow with, but it also can be sorrow multiplied. We want our joys to multiply on social media, not our sorrows.
Yeah. But then the joys make other people feel bad, and you're worried about, you know what I mean? It's touchy ground.
No, social media is tricky. I've got a very love, hate, indifferent kind of relationship depending on the day with social media. I've worked with a social media manager, which helped for a while until I got really sick some over the summer, and so got off with the schedule with her. I am working on my mindset actively right now about social media because I know that it is part of marketing. It is part of how I relate to my community, not just as a narrator, but also as a creative entrepreneurship coach. So the social media is definitely necessary, and I want to make sure that I'm putting positive, supportive, helpful things out into the world. But personally, if it were up to me, I'd get off all social media and totally disengage and just be available by email.
Well, see, I wouldn't know Gina Rogers, and I wouldn't be interviewing you right now, and I wouldn't have a cup of Joe, and I wouldn't be doing a Christmas video, and I wouldn't be dear friends with Jonathan. So I can't deny how much I love what I've gotten from social media. I just have to learn to snooze quickly.
Yes. Yeah. Navigate away if it's starting to get to be too much. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're right. I mean, I've gotten some of my best. Well, I met Gail and Barney both initially because of social media and because of us being in narrator groups together. And they're my two closest friends and are integral to how I run my business today. And I wouldn't know them without social media. So, you know, there's definitely good and bad there. There's definitely good and bad. But I do want to circle back to one thing that you said about, you know, like, what do you do when your schedule is full? Should I still be reaching out? And my concept around that is that if you want work to be coming into your business consistently,
should always be reaching out.
You need to always be marketing consistently. So the flow of marketing out of your business is directly correlated to the flow of work back into your business. Yeah. So when I'm reaching out and I've got a really full schedule, I send my reach outs like clockwork. Again, I've got a process for that. It happens every Friday. It takes me about 20 minutes. It's really easy. I, you know, just have it down pat how this works. I send it out saying, my schedule for the next however many weeks is really full, but I would love for you to keep me in mind for work beyond that. One sentence, it lets them know that I want to stay in touch. I want to stay on their radar, but I'm not available for an immediate project.
Do you include these are the last books I've done, or do you just keep it so short?
No, I do include books that I'm excited about. So there's a concept in business called attraction marketing, where you allow the product to be so good and so desirable that people want it just based on seeing the product. And the sort of stereotypical example of attraction marketing is samples in a grocery store. You get to try the sample of the food while you're walking around in the grocery store, and it's so good that you just have to buy it and take it home.
I think that's American. They would never do that over here. That's so weird. Like, so people are just walking down the aisle stuffing their face.
Well, so they only do it. Well, it's also reduced greatly since the pandemic. But yeah, I mean, they'll have little sample stands out, or the company will actually send someone to the grocery store to have a table if it's a company thing, and they'll just they'll cut a tiny little thing and put it in a tiny little container, and you typically get a toothpick, so you get to try whatever thing it is in the grocery store.
Okay.
But at any rate, back to attraction marketing. So attraction marketing is allowing your product to speak for itself. And this is in very business terms, not very artistic, but my product is the audiobooks that I narrate. So in my emails, I'm definitely going to be talking about the kinds of audiobooks that I want more of that I've already done, because I'm wanting those books that I've already done to be my attraction marketing. And it's sharing my excitement for the work. I'm not selling myself. I'm allowing the work to speak for itself. So in those reach outs, I'll typically have 1 or 2 sentences. I keep them pretty short, saying, you know, this is a project that I recently recorded. I loved it because of XYZ, and I'm excited to do more work like it. That's it.
I love that. You know what I love that struck me? Because to be fair, I might have misrepresented myself when I first brought that up, because I do still make myself, I have a spreadsheet on when I've reached out and when I have to reach out next. But my spreadsheet, and I don't know why I never thought of this before, it's quite smart. You do it every Friday. I could do fewer people more often. I do them every 8 weeks. So I do a different bunch of people like on the same day every month. And it is hard sending that many emails and sounding fresh and sounding like you're not pasting to like that many people. You start to feel fake. And but the other thing I run into is my mood is volatile. So if I'm not so much now that I'm doing the meditating, have I mentioned the meditating? Oh my God, it's changed my life. It has, and nobody seems to care. I've been like, I think the last 6 podcasts I've brought it up. Other people's time.
Wonderful that it's working for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's amazing.
yeah, no more like, but before that, I would be like, one minute I'm like calm and cool and sending them out. And then like the next month, I'm Bukowski. It's like, impending doom.
Right,
And I'm
right.
sure that energy comes through in
Yeah,
your reach out. So I'm thinking every Friday is smart. I like the way you do things in incremental, smaller
yeah.
steps.
Small steps. Yeah. So there's 52 weeks in a year. You divide
Yeah.
that by 4, that gives you 13. Now, there are weeks in there that I'm not going to be wanting to send emails, like the week of Christmas and the week of New Year's, and, like some holiday weeks that I'm not going to want to send emails. So I do it on a 12-week rotating cycle. But I have that list of the people that I'm going to be reaching out to on a regular basis, and I divide it into 12 groups. And then every week I send to 1/12 of the full list. And then I get down to the bottom and then I just go right back up to the top. And for me, part of the way that I make it so straightforward is I do copy and paste. I do keep it very
Yeah.
simple and straightforward from week to week. And for a whole quarter, I'll probably be talking about the same book. Maybe it's one that I, am getting ready to record. And so then I'm changing it to I am recording, and then I changed, I just finished recording, and then it's now out, like as the quarter advances and time passes on this one project that I'm thinking of as my attraction marketing focus for those reach outs. But it's very brief. If I know the producer particularly well, I'll add a sentence or two that's specifically related to the relationship that we have and whatnot. But I just work my way through that list and then go back up to the top. And truly, it takes me about 20 to 30 minutes a week.
The
And
thing I don't do,
I schedule them on Fridays to send the following week.
and you do with see the thing I did one thing that was very smart, and the thing that I do that isn't very smart comes from
We all
that
have both.
scarcity mindset is I don't ever mention when I'm available. I'll say I'm available, but it's usually like closer than I am available. And then if they give me the book, I will just do 2 books at once and double my workload during the day and
Yeah.
not sleep, but I've got to say I have to give myself this. Yes, I take too much on, but I don't give a bad product. I do make myself step away if I'm sounding, because that comes from working through being sick for so long. I know when I can't be there. But the one thing I did that was smart was I was starting to get a lot of nonfiction books, and it was sucking the soul out of I love nonfiction.
Yeah,
I learn a
nonfiction is
lot,
not for everyone.
but not like every day. And I think they like everyone figured out that I could say long words, and like I was getting these like books that were like you have to stop every 2 minutes to research. And I'm going to let you go in a minute. I've taken like 7 hours of your life already, but
no, this is a good conversation. I'm enjoying
learning so much. But what I did was I contacted indie writers that I had worked for doing thrillers in the past, that I enjoyed their work and I knew they had other books, and perhaps they might not have been able to pay my full rate at that point. And I said, if you can be 1,000% flexible, and what I did was, again, I know this isn't for everyone, I doubled my workload, and I would do a half hour of their book after I finished recording my book.
Sure.
But every month when I would reach out to publishers, I had a new thriller out.
Which is great.
On top of those nonfiction. So it wasn't Daniela's the nonfiction girl.
You were teaching the people who are your customers, because that's really our relationship with casting directors and with indie authors. You were teaching them how to think of you, which is exactly what every artist business owner needs to do. You take those projects that you've done that you love and that you want more of, and you use that to teach the people that you're reaching out to. This is the kind of work that I love, that I'm good at, and you can trust me with that work.
And
that's
it's
awesome.
A treat.
I'm excited for you about that.
I mean, because we all have books that we record that's hard work, and we like it and we love it and we like our job. But then you got to do like a half hour of a psycho thriller. So you're like, as soon as I finish this, I got to do,
It's dessert. It's dessert at the end of my day.
Okay, I'm going to ask you, I don't want to let you away without asking you this one question. I'm sorry, we've run over.
That's okay.
If you can leave our YouTube audience with one See, I always say I shouldn't be so comfortable with the guests, Jonathan, because what happens is I end up talking about myself and VR headsets for half the call. Okay.
But that's interesting.
It's interesting, but not on every single call. So, Jennifer, if the audience walks away with nothing else, just one piece of advice, wisdom, one thing that you would want them to take away from this call for the YouTube audience that's going to be watching this in 60 years or so, what would that be?
That it is possible to be holistically fulfilled, creatively, personally, financially, from your artistic work. And that starts by you valuing that work yourself.
I love
when
that.
you value your own work, you will be able to find the audience that loves your work too. It is possible.
Love that. I do. I think that is profound.
Mm-hmm.
I do. I think that's just completely profound. I think if we could all internalize that.
Yeah. Because if we don't believe something is possible, we're never going to search for the ways to make it possible. So if you start by believing it is possible, then you will figure out the ways to get there. And it is possible. It absolutely 100% is possible.
So like when you're driving, if you're looking right in front of you, you're going to swerve. If you look at where you're going, you'll end up getting there.
Exactly. Exactly. Or if you don't realize that your turn is coming in a quarter mile and you think the turn is in a mile, in a quarter mile, you're not looking for the turn, so you're going to miss it.
Yeah.
Well, if you recognize it is possible for me to do this thing, you'll see that turn in a quarter mile because you're watching for it. You'll recognize the opportunities for what they are.
I say this every time. I sincerely mean it today. This is the call we needed today. This was amazing. I'm going to
so much fun.
It's wonder. You were so many good points, and what I need is, please, can you send me the link to both your podcasts and your coaching information specifically?
Absolutely.
I'll already do your website, but something where people, if they want to join your programs, can join. Mm-hmm. And something, now that I've got you, this is a good time to start. I've been meaning to do this. Please, if everyone's listened, can you subscribe to this podcast? Subscribe to this playlist. I'm always meant to start doing it. 200 calls, I finally figured it out.
Yes, subscribe to this channel.
Yes, subscribe to this channel and hit the like button so we will allow other viewers to more easily find our lovely group and community.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jennifer. You're wonderful.
Thank you, Daniela.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Yeah, thank you for being here, Jonathan.
Bye. Bye.